friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to do the classics book tag. The channel Some Bunny Reads tagged me a couple of weeks ago actually in this tag, and I am just now getting around to filming my response to it. So I will link her channel down below. She is super fun. She's so funny, and her just even a simple tag question or a simple tag video is so amusing when she does it. So mine will not be nearly as amusing, but I hope you enjoy anyway. Number one, an overhyped classic that you didn't really enjoy. And for that, I am going to pick The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. I recently, well, as within the last year, read this book for the first time. Well, and probably the only time. Because I kind of felt like I should read it because it just has such this like cult following around it. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll read this and find out what this is all about. It was so weird and so boring, and I didn't like it at all. Like, Holden Caulfield is so whiny. I do not understand the hype that surrounds Catcher in the Rye. I don't know what I was supposed to get out of it. I didn't get anything out of it except a lot of falling asleep while I was trying to read it. So bad. Number two is your favorite time period to read about. And if you've been on my channel for any length of time, you know that I love Victorian era, and I also love Regency England. And because that is evidenced in that one of my favorite readathons of the year is Victober, and I also love Jane Austen. So I am in the process of reading as much Victorian literature as I possibly can, which I still feel like I am extremely behind in what I should have read for Victorian literature. Like, so many other people have read so many other things for Victorian literature that I had never even heard of before starting BookTube. And yeah, it's gonna probably be a lifelong task to read all the Victorian literature I want to read. And I pretty much, as far as Regency period stuff, have only read Jane Austen and Evelina by Frances Burney. But I love Jane Austen and I liked Evelina, but I just love that time period so much. So I'm going to be on a quest to read more from that era as well. Three is your favorite fairy tale. And to be quite honest with you, I have not really read enough fairy tales in my life to really have a concrete answer for this. However, I have watched the Disney versions of a lot of fairy tales, and I have read a few of the Grimm fairy tales, and also saw the musical Into the Woods, which talks about a lot of the darker sides of the fairy tales from the Grimm fairy tales. So I would say, because of all those things, that my favorite is probably either Cinderella or Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Now, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is just from the Disney version that I apparently really loved as a child, because I dressed up like Snow White for Halloween when I was like maybe 5 years old. And yeah, it was really cute. If I had the picture with me in my possession, I would show you, but I don't. And Cinderella, the Grimm fairy tale version, was just so interesting to me because I had only seen the Disney version, which of course cuts out all of the gory bits. And the actual Cinderella is just like so dark and crazy, and I'm like, this is kind of interesting. So I'm going to have to go with Cinderella and Snow White. Number four is, what is the most embarrassing classic that you have yet to read? Embarrassingly, I have never read or have yet to read Olive by Diana Mullet Craik. And I would say this is probably an underrated classic that, not a lot of people talk about. But it does interest me. I have heard Katie from Books and Things sing its praises, and a couple other booktubers have read it in recent years and really love it. And I feel like it's one that I would really connect with. So I really need to get to that. And that is actually on my 20 books in 2020 to read this year. So I don't know if I'll save it for October or not, but I will definitely be reading it this year and rectifying this situation. Number 5 is your favorite modern book or series that is based on a classic. And for this one, I am going to take a little liberty with it, maybe, and say The Dresden Files by Jim Butcher. Now, this is an urban fantasy mystery series that is still ongoing about a wizard detective. But the really interesting thing about it is that throughout the series, Jim Butcher really ties in a lot of classic literature figures and kind of intersperses different scenes from those classics, but spins them in a modern way and like a fantasy way. And yeah, it's really interesting how he does that and how he ties so many different mythological figures into this world. I would definitely recommend the Dresden Files if you like fantasy, number one, and if you like mythical retellings. 6 is your favorite movie version or TV series based on a classic. And for this one, I had 2. Number 1 is The Importance of Being Earnest, and number 2 is A Midsummer Night's Dream. And obviously, I have these on DVD from years ago, and I still watch them fairly frequently. So I love the ambiance of A Midsummer Night's Dream and how they play up the more fantastical parts of this, and of course Rupert Everett is just hysterical, and this is my favorite play of all time. The Importance of Being Earnest. So and I just think they do really, really well. And also, of course, BBC Pride and Prejudice. Of course. And the next one is, what is the worst TV adaptation or movie adaptation of a classic? The one I chose for this, I don't think that it is a bad adaptation necessarily, but there were some things about it that I didn't really think should have been a big focus of it, and I think that the main character wasn't really portrayed correctly in this book, and that is this version of Mansfield Park. And while it was enjoyable, the character Fanny, it's very hard to get that correct in a movie version because Fanny is very introverted. This Fanny was not as much, and she was a little bit more, not sexualized, but I don't know, just a little bit more forward than I consider Fanny to be. And the emphasis on the slave trade in this and abolition, while it was a part of the original book, it was definitely overplayed in this version. I did not really like that at all in this. I mean, I understand it's important, but I didn't really feel like it was such an important part of this book to make it what they made it. So, I didn't really enjoy this as much as I hoped I would, but whatever. Question 8 is your favorite editions of classics that you want to collect. And as you can see from up there, and I want to try to collect all of the Penguin cloth-bound classics. Well, maybe not all of them, but the ones that I am actually interested in reading, because I don't just want to have books on my shelf that look pretty. I want them to be ones that I enjoy reading. So, and that maybe I will read again. So this one definitely, this one was a cover buy. I do like the story of Alice in Wonderland, but I also really love flamingos. So this one was definitely one that is more just to be pretty on my shelves. But I did read it also, and I'm currently reading Vanity Fair in the Penguin Clothbound Classics edition. That was a little bit of a risk because um, I really liked the cover of it, which it's downstairs. I didn't bring it up, so I'll maybe put a picture of it here. Um, so it was a little bit of a cover buy, but I knew I did want to read it. Um, and while I'm enjoying it, I'm finding it a little bit difficult to get through. I'm buddy reading this with Tara at Buzzword Books, so I don't know if we're just not trying to get through it fast enough, so we're kind of losing momentum here and there, but it is still good and I do enjoy it. But yeah, that was probably a little bit more of a risky purchase on my part. I should probably just buy ones that I know I'm going to like. But oh well. Prompt number 9, an underhyped book that you would recommend to everyone. And this isn't going to be for everyone, but I would definitely recommend it to anyone who wants to read Victorian literature. And that is Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. And I would actually recommend pretty much anything by Elizabeth Gaskell. But this has so far been my favorite Elizabeth Gaskell. I still have some more to read of hers, but I have read this one, North and South, and Cranford. And I have Cranford, it is that bright green one up there, and which I also really loved. North and South so far has been like, it was good, but it was like maybe my least favorite of the ones I've read. But Wives and Daughters was my first Elizabeth Gaskell, and I just loved it so much. So I just thought it was so witty, and I felt like it was accessible. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it as a good book to anyone who wants to get into Victorian literature but feels like it might be too stuffy. I didn't feel like Wives and Daughters was stuffy at all. And probably along that same line, Cranford, I don't feel like that is stuffy at all either. So both of those books I would definitely recommend to anyone. The last prompt is to tag some people. I'm going to just tag 2 people that I am pretty sure like classics and have read a fair amount that they might enjoy doing this tag. Tara from Buzzword Books, who I have been buddy reading a couple of big classics with recently, and Anne from Elizabeth Ann Reads. She reads a lot of stuff, so I'm sure she has read a number of classics that she could give some good answers to this tag. So, yeah, that was the classics book tag. I feel like I might have done this tag before, but I didn't go back through my videos and check. So, but anyway, I am really glad that I was tagged in this, and yeah, definitely go check out Somebody Reads channel. I will have it linked below. She is fabulous and deserves way more subscribers. And I will talk to you soon, BookTube. Bye, friends.